Chomish and the Breakjown Chrain. Chomish wondered if the breakdown train would be needed after Eunice's collision with one of his empty trucks, but some workers just covered the broken wagon pieces in a tarpaulin. "Don't want the passengers to see 'em," said the yardmaster. Meanwhile, a fitter inspected Eunice. As she complained about her sore cylinder, Chomish shunted some oil tankers for James's train. He told him all about George. "Pah!" snorted James. "You two are only painted blue. That's why he's rude to you. He wouldn't dare cause a smart red engine like me any trouble." Down the line, George had arrived at the roadworks site. He was enjoying himself. "Ripping up rails," he told her as he watched the old branch line being taken up. "What a life!" James puffed into view with his train of tankers. "How do you like this, James?" called George. James took no notice as he puffed over the crossing. George felt insulted. "You're a useless red monster." But James didn't hear. The fitter had reported no cracks or dents in Eunice's cylinder, and she said she felt a little better now, so she was put back to work on a train of vegetables. She hurried along the line, and when she reached the roadworks, she paid no attention to George's charging either. "I'll show those worthless things who's boss," George grumbled. Eunice had lied about her cylinder being sore. When she'd hit that truck, she could feel her smoke deflector work loose. The fitter was so concerned with her cylinder that he never bothered to check her deflector. As she sped along the line, she could feel her loose smoke deflector breaking off, but she didn't say anything to her crew. She wanted to be rid of her deflectors, and thought losing one would do. Soon the roadworks reached the railway crossing, which was soon to be a road crossing. The road crew began to break for lunch, and George's driver was about to park George at the end of the new road. But George wanted to keep going. "Tarmac it! Tarmac it!" he barked. He jerked forward, flattened the pile of tarmac in front of him, and rolled over the rails. "You stupid thing!" shouted the foreman. "If an engine tries to cross that, it'll be lifted off the tracks!" George knew this, but he didn't care. The foreman sent someone to inform the signaller, who set the signal to danger. But no one realized that the signal wires were encumbered by Eunice's broken-off smoke deflector. James was now travelling home, pulling trucks of timber. He was running nicely, he had the trucks in good order, and he was looking forward to giving George the cold shoulder again. "That's nice," he said when he saw the signal at clear. "We don't need to stop." "Yes, we do," called his driver when he saw the roadworks ahead. Workers shouted as James approached much too fast. "Oh!" James groaned as his brakes screeched. "On, on, on!" laughed the trucks as they bumped into James, and still hissing and whistling, poor James hit the tarmac rails and fell on his side, his trucks piling behind him in a heap. A bell rang in the signal box at the big station yard. A signaller ran up to Chomish. "James is off the line! The breakdown train! Quickly!" So Chomish went to fetch the train. The workers boarded the coach, Chomish was coupled up, and off they went along the main line. "Hurry, hurry, hurry!" puffed Chomish. He wasn't pretending to be like Jordan, he meant it. "I'll bet it was George or the trucks," he thought. "Bother them and their tricks. I hope James isn't hurt." When they found James near the next station, his driver and stoker were looking him over to see if he was hurt. Chomish pushed the breakdown train alongside. The breakdown gang got out of the coach and helped the road crew mend the rails. Then Chomish pulled the unhurt trucks away. He bumped them hard. "Oh dear," they groaned. George was cross. The foreman made him tow some of the derailed trucks back to the rails. What a disgrace, he grumbled. "Serves you right," puffed Chomish to George and the trucks. Chomish was hard at work, puffing back and forth all afternoon. Then the two cranes lifted James upright and put him onto one of the flat trucks. Then Chomish took him to the works, leaving the gang to finish cleaning up the mess. Along the way to the works, they stopped to pick up the smoke deflector that had fouled the signal wires. Eunice was at the works when they arrived. I was there too, telling her what a naughty engine she was. I smiled when I saw Chomish arrive with James. "Well done, Chomish," I said. "I've heard all about how you handled the situation, and I'm proud of you. You are a really useful engine." Chomish was delighted. "James, you shall have an overhaul and a repaint. Eunice, you will have your smoke deflector back. And Chomish," I said, "you shall have the old branch line." Chomish gasped. "But sir, George is tearing it up." "They're not pulling up the entire branch line," I told them. "Just the extension from the lead mine to the old dockyard. We are reopening the rest of the branch line. So you shall have it all to yourself, Chomish. And you can bring Annie and Clarabelle with you to take passengers." "Oh, thank you, sir," said Chomish happily. Now Chomish is as happy as can be. He puffs proudly backwards and forwards along his branch line all day with Annie and Clarabelle, who have been cleaned up and emptied of any animals living in them. He even has a shed to himself at the branch line's top station. But he doesn't miss the other engines. There is always one to talk to at the junction station. Edward, Henry, and James stopped quite often to chat with him. Mildred didn't talk much, and Gordon and Eunice were always in a hurry. But none of them ever forgot to whistle when they saw Chomish, and Chomish always whistles in return.